I'm Walt, a former deputy sheriff. In all my years on the job, nothing ever stuck with me quite like what happened in the summer of 1997. Some cases fade with time, but others sink into your bones. For me, that one never left. That summer, I was spending most of my days down in the southern backwoods of Missouri, the kind of town that barely shows up on a map. Population: 1 grocery store, 1 gas station, and a church. Folks were either too old to leave or had nowhere else to go. They called me around 6 in the morning. A teenage girl had gone missing. Her name was Rachel Greaves, 17 years old. Her mother noticed she didn't get on the school bus that morning. Everything in her room was in place, no signs of forced entry. Her backpack was still in the house, but Rachel was gone. We combed through the town top to bottom, searched the woods, checked the lake. No witnesses, no security cameras. Hell, we were lucky if we could get a phone signal out there. But here's the strange part. Behind Rachel's house and the muddy trail that led out into the woods, there was only one footprint, just one, going out, but not coming back. No pair of prints, no tire tracks. It was like she walked away and vanished into thin air. Right then, I knew something wasn't right. On the second day, Rachel's best friend Emily came to the station, quietly and alone. She had a small notebook in her hands, Rachel's journal. Some of the pages were torn out, but what remained chilled me to the core. It watches me at night. There's someone at the window, closer each time. At first, I thought it was a dream, but last night, I saw breath on the glass. Emily thought Rachel was just being dramatic, maybe having nightmares. But the last entry in the journal felt different, real. If someone finds this, know that the last thing I saw was not human. The locals dismissed it as nonsense, said she was lonely, maybe depressed, maybe she ran off, but that footprint and that note, they never sat right with me. 5 days later, about 20 feet from where the footprint ended, a patch of ground had caved in. Beneath it, an old root cellar, abandoned, damp, smelled like mold and rust. I went down with a flashlight, nothing down there, except the message scorched onto the wall in smoky black letters. If you look too, it'll take you too. I sealed the place off that same day, and no one's opened it since. It's been 28 years now. Rachel's still missing. No new homes have been built near that site. In fact, most folks moved away. The town's nearly dead, but I still can't sleep at night, because sometimes at the end of that muddy path where the footprint once stopped, another set appears, and this time they lead back. My name is David. I spent 15 years working in the Federal Missing Persons Unit. I've seen hundreds of cases, abductions, runaways, tragic accidents. But Vermont, summer of '97, I've never seen anything like it. Ever since that incident, whenever I sit alone at the table, my eyes lock onto a single spot. That year, in a small mountain village near the northern border of Vermont, 3 children vanished within weeks of each other. First was 7-year-old Thomas Keene, then 5-year-old Lily Moran. The last was a toddler, Jacob, only 3 years old. The local authorities tried to pin it on a wild animal attack, but there was no evidence. No claw marks, no blood, no remains. Nothing at all was ever found. Nothing. When I arrived, It felt like the entire village had taken a vow of silence. Doors were shut early, windows were blacked out. People avoided my eyes, my presence. Only one person spoke, an old woman with trembling, wrinkled hands. Sitting on a creaky wooden chair on our porch, she never looked at me. She just whispered, "The Black One returns. It always returns." At first, I thought it was just superstition, rural nonsense. But the deeper I dug, the more unsettling it got. All 3 children had last been seen in the same place, a circular stone formation at the end of an old forest path just outside the village. Locals had a name for it, the return place. I decided to go there alone one night. Took my thermal camera, audio recorder, and radio. It was below freezing, but inside that circle the ground was dry. No snow, no wind, and eerily, no sound. Even the radio was dead. As I scanned the area with the camera, I noticed something right at the center. A shape, invisible to the eye, but unmistakably there, like mist or a diver suspended underwater. The thermal camera showed a fixed temperature, but nothing was visible to the naked eye. I took 3 steps toward it, and suddenly a sharp ringing pierced my ears, like a needle burrowing into my brain. My equipment shut down, the recordings went silent, but worst of all, something filled my mind, a sentence. I didn't think it wasn't mine, but it echoed inside me. "If you keep going, you will be less." I backed off and left. That night, back at the motel, I rewatched the thermal footage. And there, on a single frame, something that hadn't registered before. Just outside the circle, beneath a tree, a single footprint. One step, just like in the Rachel case in Missouri. Same year, same direction. And again, no return prints. Thousands of miles apart, same year, vanished children, single footprint. My name is Carol. I spent 35 years as an elementary school teacher, teaching kids the alphabet, how to count, how to share. It was the most honorable and fulfilling duty of my life. But there are some things, no matter how educated or patient you are, they leave you completely unprepared. 2005 was my final year, and the reason? A child's drawing. That year, I was teaching in a small village school nestled deep in the forests of western Arkansas. The school building was as humble as the village, 1 story, wooden, heated by a single stove. We had only 7 students. They all knew each other, more like siblings than classmates. It had been a peaceful, uneventful school year until the silence cracked. It was late November. During a morning writing class, 9-year-old Sarah suddenly froze. Her eyes locked on the window. She didn't respond when we called her name. I walked over and gently touched her shoulder. That's when she screamed, "There's someone at the window." I looked outside. There was no one. Only dry branches swaying in the wind. Sarah couldn't be calmed down. Her mother picked her up and took her home. I chalked it up to childish fear. Imagination at that age can be powerful. But the next day, it happened again. To another student, then again the day after. They all said the same thing. There's someone at the window. But each one pointed to a different window. Each described a different figure. One said it was tall, shadow-like. Another spoke of a mouth slowly fogging the glass from the outside. After the fourth incident, one parent asked to meet me at the village cafe. She said they were uneasy about how close the school was to an old cemetery just beyond the woods. I still believed it was nothing more than a shared childhood fear. But then, 11-year-old Peter disappeared. His desk was empty when we arrived in the morning. His parents said they thought he'd already left for school, but he hadn't arrived. And right in front of his desk, on the icy window, was a breath mark. That morning, the temperature was below freezing, and the school's heater wasn't working. Yet the breath mark was just there. When we wiped it away, it came back, over and over again, from the inside. The police launched an investigation. No clues were found. Peter's footprints vanished halfway along the path to school. No sign of a struggle, no evidence of running away. And after that morning, his name was never called again during roll call. On the last day of class, the quietest student, Lily, approached me quietly. She handed me a drawing. It was our classroom. The desks, the windows, everything. And in front of one window, a figure. Arms limp, head tilted slightly. It wore my clothes, had my hairstyle, but the face, the eyes, weren't mine. They stared blankly, empty. I didn't burn the drawing. I slipped it into my pocket. When the classroom emptied out, I went window to window, and on one of them, Peter's window, there was something faint, written into the fog with a finger. Barely visible, but legible. Bring the others. I retired that year. Never returned to that town. The school building still stands, but there are no students. Families quietly took their children out of the mountain villages. And sometimes, when I look out my window late at night, I think I see fog forming on the glass. And I can't help but wonder, how many did I bring? I worked as a forest ranger in the national parks of Northern California for 22 years. Lost campers, wildlife encounters, wildfire patrols. I've seen my share of strange things in the wilderness, but what happened in the fall of 2007 was different, because this time it wasn't a person that went missing. It was reality itself. Back then, I was stationed at a fire watchtower near an old village tucked deep in the mountains. You'd struggle to find its name on any map. The locals had one piece of advice they'd all repeat When the lights go out, stay inside. They believed some things only moved in darkness. My job was simple: keep watch, report any signs of fire, and make sure nothing was out of the ordinary. I liked night shifts. Silence is a good thing. But that night, the silence felt wrong. The sky was overcast, no moon in sight. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard a child's voice crackle through the radio. "Dad?" It repeated. Twice. I tried to trace the signal, figure out who it could be. That's when I noticed movement at the base of the tower. I switched to the exterior camera and saw just one thing: a single footprint, pressed deep into the mud, directly below the tower. No trail leading in, no trail leading out. I had a bad feeling right then. The next morning, news came from the village. An 8-year-old boy named Dean had vanished overnight. He'd been seen in his bed around 2 a.m. The window was locked. The door was closed, but he was gone, and his father swore he hadn't touched the radio. 2 days later, I found a stone outside my cabin. Something had been written on it, using ashes. "If you look, you lose." That phrase hit me like ice. I remembered the year Rachel went missing in Missouri, how they found that writing in an old cellar, and the Vermont return place case. Same message, same feeling. Even that teacher's report from Arkansas, the one about breath on the window and the missing children, all of them distant in space, but somehow connected. I went back to the tower and pulled up the camera footage from the night Dean disappeared. And there it was, on one single frame. A shadow beneath the tower, a shadow with nothing there to cast it. The screen flickered right after, and a message appeared for just a fraction of a second. "Don't look inside." I thought about quitting after that, but something in me felt responsible. We never found Dean, but I know he wasn't the first, and he won't be the last. Sometimes when I'm alone in the tower at night, I see a reflection in the glass, one that doesn't belong to me. And in my own eyes, I see a bottomless void, as if someone inside me has gone missing too.